I love that everyone goes all quiet. Oh, can't talk now. Yeah, we've gone live. So it'll take about 30 seconds for us to actually go live on YouTube. But anyway, welcome. Everybody, thank you very much for joining. I don't know why I'm the host. I'm not really. Hello.
You sounded like, what's that bloke called who does the kids' programs with the maggot top? Hello.
Hello there. What's the name of that show?
Hello.
No, okay, just me.
Yep.
Just you.
Must have somebody. Anyway, that's really not what we're going to talk about, is it? Megan, it's absolutely amazing to have you here. And I told you before, I'm not going to fawn over you because we've done all of that bit. But your content is fantastic, and anybody watch, get over to Megan's page, give her a follow, and you will not be disappointed with what she puts out.
Thank you.
The entertainment value is wonderful. We've got we've got a couple of questions from followers, and fans. We have fans now, people. So we'll put that to you as we go. Right, Paul, you had the starting question, didn't you?
Yeah, we did talk about that briefly. Like my question, I suppose, is what motivated you, Megan, moving from Canada to the UK to then start going on TikTok and looking at immigration laws and absolutely rinsing anybody who doesn't understand immigration law. I love it. I'm here for it. But what motivated you to do that? I think it's brilliant.
It was a long journey. So I initially moved to the UK to do some traveling and acting. I was not politically minded at all when I first moved over here almost 7 years ago now. And then I was here for 2 years. I did some traveling, and then my visa ended. And then I went back to Canada for 7 months, coincidentally during the pandemic as well, to apply for the new visa that I'm on now. Well, it's not really a new visa because it's expiring at the end of the year, but basically the visa that I'm on now is a 5-year visa, and I can apply for indefinite leave to remain and a citizenship through it.
Nice.
So that's what I'm doing at the end of the year.
Is that expensive? Sorry.
Yeah, the whole process from like visa to citizenship is I don't know if it's too expensive because I don't want to be the judge of that, but like it's expensive. So when I moved here the second time after the pandemic and on the new visa, I started a YouTube channel because I had always wanted to do YouTube. It was kind of my dream. I wanted to make money online. I love filming. I love editing. So I wanted to do that. So that's what I started doing. And then that gradually shifted into a reaction channel, which is something I wasn't expecting, but that's where the views were. So I kind of transitioned into doing reactions. And I still have that channel. I still post 3 times a week, by the way. I created a TikTok account as an extension of that YouTube channel. So I started posting like my reaction clips on TikTok. And then it was around last year during the general election time when there was a lot of information coming out about reform. And I started there's a lot of anti-immigration rhetoric going on during that time, and I was not having it because I've never really saw myself any differently to any other immigrant in the UK. And when I first moved over to the UK, I was coming back from Wales because I have extended family in Wales. And I was on the train and I was talking to this older English couple, and they said, "Oh, where do you live?" I said, "I live in London." And they said, "Oh, we don't like London, too many immigrants." And I said, "Well, I'm an immigrant, you know?" So that was my introduction to like the covert racism in the UK. And I always knew it was there, but it was not something that I was directly facing, right? So fast forward to last year, there was a lot of anti-immigration stuff going on. So I think I saw a couple TikToks of people saying that immigrants don't pay for the NHS, and I was like, what? That's ridiculous. We do, and then I started correcting people about like just regular immigration, like just visa holding immigration. And then people kept saying, "Oh, you're fine. It's the illegal immigrants. It's the illegal immigrants," you know? And I was like, "Well, who are the illegal immigrants? Like, I'm going to do some more research into this." And like, it was literally from there, I just started doing a ton of research onto the whole subject, getting really angry that the media and the news is like basically putting out so many lies and you know the propaganda by Nigel Farage, because I've seen this like constantly since for how many years I've been here. All of this talk about the dinghies and illegal immigrants and everything, and it just really made me furious to how we're like basically the British public is being lied to. So that's when I started doing it because I just felt like a moral obligation to correct all of the misinformation, you know?
Wow.
I get it. That's brilliant. What story?
Yeah, it's a long story, but we got there in the end.
No, that's great. It's just interesting how you first sort of eye-opener into the late racism in the UK was speaking to people on the train. That's brilliant. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fantastic because it's kind of content you wouldn't think it's a very recent thing. You kind of, when I first stumbled across you, I would have thought you're kind of qualified in this area. You know exactly what you're talking about. So it's been a very, very quick learning curve for you.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of research. Well, when the immigration stuff, like the visa type immigration stuff, I didn't really need to do much research on because I knew about it already. But I do spend a lot of time doing research, and I think that a lot of the stuff that I say it's not too hard to find, you know. It's not too hard to look at the government website. It's not too hard to look at like or to find research articles about this, you know. So I feel like what I'm doing isn't that hard. But I guess to the average person who has a very busy life and they can't, don't have time to spend as much time as I do researching, I guess I can understand. Like it might seem like I'm all this, this. I might seem that I have all this knowledge.
No, I don't think it's about that. I think it's obviously a case of where you're able of how you're able to articulate that as well. Because that kind of resonates, I think, with a lot of people, rather than just spewing out numbers or whatever.
Yeah.
You're there articulating the facts in a very common sense way. That's the way it appears to me, anyway. I wasn't going to fawn over you. I wasn't going to. Never mind. So the obvious question, I'm going to try and think like somebody who doesn't know. You've obviously come here as an immigrant yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just keep it plain and simple. What's the difference?
What's the difference between
you and anybody else coming over here? So
there's different visa processes. There's different, obviously refugees have a different story as well. Like but like at the end of the day, we're people from different countries who live in the UK, and have to adapt to a different type of lifestyle. And yes, like Canada has more of a similar culture to the UK does, comparatively to like Iran or Afghanistan. But at the end of the day, we're still having to assimilate. Like I had to come to the UK I didn't know anybody. I had some extended family in Wales, but in London I hardly knew anybody. So I basically had to start from scratch. I had to find a job. I had to find a house or a place to live. I had to get a bank account, which is like almost impossible without a job and a house. So there's this like until you actually move abroad, you don't know what that entails. And I don't see myself as any different to anybody else from any other country. Of course, they have the added barrier of having to learn a new language. So that's something completely unique to other people's situations. Whereas I didn't have to, so I even had it easier, So I don't really see much of a difference.
I don't think there is, other than you, for want of a better phrase, you had an easier route. It was easier to you to come to Britain than what it is for other people. I'm just going to touch on that thing because it's one of the things that annoys me constantly that I see about immigration. It's something that's pushed out by the likes of Rupert Lowe and Lee Anderson about people having to learn English before they come here. And it's that line that's constantly being pushed. And I don't know, I kind of want to dispel that myth somehow, because English can barely speak English. I mean, no, that's true. That is
Yeah.
statistically true. The average UK literacy age is 9.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been brought
know
up in
that.
a recent study. So, you know, kind of, you know, you should be spending your time fighting for education rather than pushing people to speak English. But how many English people move abroad and learn a foreign language?
Exactly. How many pensioners are in Spain who don't know Spanish, right? So it's
I can actually quite a few.
Yeah, lots.
Yeah, it's like, you know, egg and chips, por favor. That's like as
Yeah.
much as you kind of get.
Ha-
And that's one of the things that annoys me. But what's one of the most common myths that you dispel?
That's a good question. A big one. I mean, I think the biggest myth that is circulating now, it is just the inaccuracy of what an illegal immigrant is. I think that that terminology is consistently being perpetuated as someone who comes across the English Channel, and
Mhm.
it's just so important to understand uh, what an illegal immigrant is and like the majority of illegal immigrants are the people who outstay their visas, and just the focusing entirely on the people that are coming in on boats is kind of like, if you only care about that, you don't care about illegal immigration, because it's disproportionately um, visa overstayers. So
Yep.
that's the main thing, I think, is the and then you have all the other myths about asylum seekers as well, the racist rhetoric about them being, you know, dangerous, rapists, criminals, all of that, you know, comes along with it. But I think at the start, it's they are illegal, you know.
It's good that you touched on that. Can you just dispel that myth as well about, because again, reform voters, right wing, whoever, they constantly paint immigrants as abusers.
hmm It's fear. Yeah.
Go on.
It's fear of the unknown. They don't know these men, and it is mostly men, and there are reasons for that. It's because it's dangerous to cross the English Channel. It's dangerous to cross all of Europe. So the other thing is these right wing reformer anti-immigrant people don't understand that there is a country, there's a world outside of the UK. So the journey that these asylum seekers make do not start in France, you know. And the main, like, they're constantly saying, oh, why don't they stay in France? They didn't start in France, you know. The French could say, well, yeah, why didn't they stay in Italy, you know? And then it's just a constant cycle of, like, you know, pushing them further away, and that's not productive at all. So it's this they need to get out of this idea that the UK is the center of the universe, um, and understand that these asylum seekers make a massive journey, and that journey is dangerous, not just the English Channel, but it's dangerous for children and women, for reasons such as, you know, human trafficking, sexual exploitation, and all of that. So if you had a family, you know, a mother, a father, and a child, and you had one chance to go find refuge in a country, in the UK, and a lot of them do come to the, not a lot of them, actually, quite a few of them come to the UK. Most of them stay in mainland Europe. But if you had one opportunity, if you were selling your belongings for the chance to come to the UK as a refugee, who would you send? Would you send the mother? Would you send the child? Would you send the father? Because knowing how dangerous the journey is. So
You've just cut about half a dozen of my questions out.
Lovely.
Thank you very much for that. No, again, it's the way that you articulate things, and I think it's absolutely fantastic.
I was going to say, the amount of times that I've jumped into the comment section of your TikTok videos and joined in trying to explain, you know, the basic rules of asylum seekers. Like, the minute they set foot on this shore, without a passport or documents, they can just say, I wish to claim asylum. That immediately makes them legal.
yeah.
And the illegal bit is when you overstay a visa, right? So I don't think, as you hit on loads of times, and it's really difficult to get that point across to people who have struggle they struggle spelling a name or tying their own shoelaces. It's really difficult to get that point across to reformers. It really is.
Yeah. It's they have a hard time with empathy and stepping into other people's shoes. They can't see themselves in an asylum seeker's situation, right? They can't empathize at all. And yes, there probably are some people coming across the English Channel that may be criminals, that may be dangerous, but to generalize them all as that is very racist, and it is problematic. And they're going as far as, not all of them, but some of them are going as far as to say that they should be dying in the English Channel, that we need more deaths in the English Channel, and that's like 1930s Germany rhetoric.
Yeah, I've seen so many comments saying, "Give me a boat, I'll go out in the channel, I'll shoot them." It's beyond words of horrendous, and they think it's absolutely okay. They think the Royal Navy should be sent out into the channel. And you're like, what the? I want to swear, I really do. I don't want to.
And it goes beyond the dehumanization as well, because there's complete like they completely don't know what the asylum system is. They have no knowledge of the asylum system. They when I even try to say, well, it's the government, the Tories, change the laws, they just refuse to hold who's accountable. They're trying to fix the illegal immigration problem with a simple solution, which is the Navy. Shoot them, send them back to France, right? And it's just not that simple. It's a very nuanced and complex issue that they didn't even care about 10 years ago because it wasn't an issue, right? So yeah, and a lot of them are Brexit voters, which is hilarious.
What a quinky dink. Yeah.
Can I just go back to something you said as well, because it's a myth I often see as well about people come to Britain for the benefits because we give people the most money. Would you like to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I mean, they don't, like, if they came, if it was just for benefits, they would have stayed in France. They would have stayed in, they would have gone to any other country. Like, Britain does not have any better benefits than any other country. It has some of the worst benefits. It's not even a benefit because they get a small allowance. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. It's like 50 quid if they don't have housing. If
I think it's maximum £8 a day or something is the maximum they can receive.
Pitiful amounts of money.
And then the conditions in these hotels are just brutal, and it's inhumane. So they're not like, it's such a stupid myth that could easily be debunked if you care to look at any of the other countries' benefits system. I'm saying benefits because they're not really benefits.
Dare I bring up the subject of the ECHR?
Oh God. My favorite myth about this, and I've seen it so many times, is when we're talking about Brexit, and one of the reformer lot says, well, Brexit wasn't implemented properly, and I say, well, how was it not implemented properly? And they say, well, we haven't left the ECHR. It just kills me every time. The ECHR has nothing to do with the EU.
Just that comment hurts my head. It's like an instant block these days. I'm just so done with it.
It just makes me laugh.
Just put it out there, right? When Brexit was happening, you got to leave or you got to remain. You didn't get a say in anything else.
No.
You trusted the idiots to actually implement it. And those of us with any ounce of common sense knew they were never going to implement it.
No.
Or implement it in any way that was going to be beneficial to the working people of the UK.
When I ask them how would you implement it differently, they never answer.
I can't.
Because they don't know.
Well, there's like 15 million different versions of Brexit. And because we didn't vote on it, everyone's still arguing about it like nearly 10 years later. It's just absolutely bananas. Rejoin. That's me. Rejoin.
Again, it's that link that you said about earlier when you made a comment about it reflecting 1930s Germany. Leaving the ECHR kind of has that feel about it as well.
Oh,
That's
definitely.
exactly where it takes us to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Again, I'm trying not to jump, so I'm going to stick on what you've been talking about.
Yeah.
One of the things you did mention was about this belief that everybody gets put up in 4 and 5 star hotels, which obviously they were originally.
Mm-hmm.
What's the truth behind that?
Well, the thing about the hotels is they're owned by privately owned, like they're owned by private companies. So it's it's a moneymaker for a lot of rich Tory donors.
Yep.
So the more asylum seekers in these hotels, the more money they make, and everything's about money. Like the world revolves around money, and that's something else that I talk about a lot on my TikTok about about capitalism and the oligarchs, right? So it's
Just hang fire though. Nigel isn't a populist this week.
oh yes,
Not this
Nigel
week.
isn't a populist this
Sorry.
week. This week he's not.
No.
No, he's just a fascist.
Always.
But the hotels weren't really much of a thing before Brexit. The hotels were created. The problem of the hotels was created because there was an influx of asylum seekers, and the processing of them kind of stopped. So the Tories totally stopped processing them for a little bit. It's also harder to process them now because of leaving EU regulation, like the Dublin Agreement, which allowed us to send some asylum seekers back to the first EU country that they entered, and the asylum system is completely screwed up because of Brexit and the Rwanda scheme, which put a delay on it as well. So we wouldn't be having the issues with the hotels if Brexit never happened.
Yeah, I agree completely. Brexit caused the current immigration system, the influx we're seeing at the moment. All of this rhetoric about close the borders, protect our borders, and it did have the absolute opposite effect. Again, sorry, go on.
I will say there has also been an influx of asylum seekers just generally into Europe because of climate change is a big one. More the wars in the Middle East and conflict in the Middle East and Africa. Like there is generally overall an influx of asylum seekers, but we would have been able to process them a lot faster still if we hadn't done Brexit.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Brexit has completely hamstrung us.
Yeah, but it's all linked though, like you say. Again, I've tried having conversations with people about saying, if we invest in green energy and support our neighbouring countries or wherever, but also when we invest in preventative measures in terms of supporting other countries with their military or defence or whatever, that saves us money. So stopping that foreign aid, stopping the funding to climate, it's all just going to lead to more asylum seekers.
Yeah, it's all linked.
It's the contradiction of everything that the right wingers want. The right wingers want no immigration, but because of the policies that they support, there has to be more immigration. They're contradicting themselves constantly, right? But it's also because of a lack of education. They just don't know. Like particularly low earners, the working class, tend to vote more right wing because of uneducation or because they aren't educated.
Yeah.
It's a very, very, very similar arc as to what's happening in the US with MAGA. I mean, as you know, Megan, you can MAGA and Reform are like the same batch of inhumane, inept, backwards reading, wine swilling. Do you know what I mean? I could go on, but I don't want to think of too many words. Yeah. Oh. How long do you want this live to go on for?
You can say all the words you want.
I know.
I'm feeling those words too.
Sometimes I forget we're not on TikTok and I have to watch what I say. Bunch of bastards. Feels good.
Can I swear?
Go for it. Enjoy.
Fuck them.
I'm going to ask you a question because as a younger person, and I can say that because I'm old, right, but you are a younger person. What's your views on? Because it kind of feels to me as like there's a big rise in racism, and that's tied directly to the anti-immigrant rhetoric at this moment in time.
It's scapegoating. So
Mm.
you have these right wing far right populist politicians, Trump, Farage, doesn't matter where you go. Um, they are in the pockets of billionaires who are influencing their agendas, essentially.
Mhm.
They're influencing their policies. And because of that, they need a scapegoat. They need to get the population to agree that, a particular demographic is the enemy, whether that be immigrants, transgender people, doesn't matter. They need to get they need to tell the public that this demographic of people is the enemy. This is the problem. They are the problem, and I have the solution to that problem. And that is fear mongering, and it's the easiest way to control people. So that's how this has all started, and it's been happening for years. Trump was largely elected because of conspiracy theories. So it's just people believing in misinformation and scapegoating.
Mm. And I'm going to keep doing this because that again ties us back to 1930s Germany.
All of it. All of it's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the far right, like the actual racist white supremacist group supporting that, backing that, right?
But that's one of the big concerns that I struggle to get people to see, and nobody seems to be talking about it, and it's certainly not touching the media. But you see the likes of Steve Bannon, who is openly supporting white supremacy. He pushes it on his platform, and nobody's touching on it. Why? Why is nobody talking about this? Why is he publicly being given a platform when we know
Musk doing the Nazi salute, right? Like,
there's
no way 10 years ago that would have been excusable, but now it's, he was just giving his heart out, right?
Well, I think that's my fear, because I hark back to the good old days when we had nothing, and we put bits of cardboard on our feet for shoes and things, but we had community, and we were able to out those types of people, and they weren't welcome in our community. People now seem emboldened use that kind of rhetoric out in the streets and show the face on social media when they're saying it, and that scares the living daylights out of me at this moment in time, especially for young people coming through. And
but I think
sorry, go on.
I think as well, like it's very much emboldened in the media as well. Like if you look at media stereotypes, like who typically, like you have the terrorist, which is usually a villain, and obviously we've had some incidents, 9/11 and 7/7 bombings, which haven't helped. But the media is also perpetuating this narrative that brown people, Muslims are bad. Through racial stereotyping, so it's been happening for years and years, and it's basically been brainwashing the public against people of Middle Eastern or Indian, or it doesn't matter if their skin color is brown, they're a terrorist, right?
Absolutely. Well, you can trace it back throughout history, because I mean now it's the immigrants. It was predominantly Muslims prior to that. Then it was the blacks and the Asians, the Jamaicans, the Jews. It's kind of just a pattern that repeats itself. And I'll say again, takes us all the way back to 1930s Germany. And it just keeps, it's like this pattern. And it's like, why can't people see what's going on, where they're being led to? And I had a question in my head that I was leading to, and I've got no clue what that question was.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. My apologies.
No. As I was saying those words, I had a question that I was coming to.
Yeah.
I was saying those words to lead up to it. Actually, I have, yes, because you mentioned Musk and you mentioned that salute. I mentioned this to Andres the other night. Are you aware of the Dark Enlightenment theory? It's only something I've kind of come across. No. It's fascinating. You'll go down a rabbit hole, and it's a fascinating thing to be reading about, and it's something that Elon Musk subscribes to, and it's what he pushes out, and it's basically it's very cleverly written in some respects, because it's not overtly racist, but it is if you know where it's heading, and you've got enough about you. But it's basically a blueprint for white supremacy. That's what it reads like to me, and it's fascinating. And when you read it, you'll go, yeah, that's Musk, that's Trump, that's Farage. You know exactly where they're coming from. And they are playing this script to the letter.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. That's scary.
It is. I've been trying to find a way of doing a post about it, but my head can't just, without being offensive to people and just saying, these bastards are fascists. It's a simple.
It's truly eye-opening.
Well,
Get into the overview of it.
I don't know if you've heard of Curtis Yarvin. If you've done any, have you heard of him? I've just been kind of going down a bit of a rabbit hole of Curtis Yarvin. And this might be a bit fear-mongering. I don't know, but at this stage, like anything's on the table, I think. He's a conspiracy theorist, and he believes that basically in a world where the billionaire elites run the world as a monarchy, essentially, and everybody else are the serfs. So vast inequality. And JD Vance. JD Vance he likes his stuff, like he subscribes to him, so it's a bit.
Megan, is that Yarvin, Yarvin?
Yes, Curtis Yarvin. Yeah.
I just looked him up very briefly.
Literally, the first thing that's just come up about him, Yarvin, alongside philosopher Nick Land, is credited with founding the Dark Enlightenment
theory.
Yeah.
We're on the same path, just different.
There you go. You've got their different routes to get there, but you're both in the same way.
Oh yeah.
It's very, very frightening when you read about it. Very scary when you think of what could potentially come.
Oh yeah.
Well, we all know the fascist lineage that Elon Musk has with his family, right? They were actual German Nazis, and they moved to South Africa during apartheid, and then Elon went to Canada and then into America.
Well, his mom's Canadian. He has a Canadian passport. So there was a whole
that's how he got there.
Protest. There was a whole protest, or like a what's the word? When you sign something, my brain is blanking. But basically, Canadians were trying to get petition. Thank you. Canadians were trying to get his citizenship revoked because he's a citizen. So, it didn't work because you can't get someone's citizenship revoked via petition. But we're like Canadians are furious about it because he's technically a Canadian citizen, and he retweeted someone's tweet saying that someone tweeted about the petition. He retweeted it saying that Canada's not a real country anyway.
The guy's such a douchebag.
Yeah.
The words I have for Elon.
Yeah, just on that then with Musk, I was watching something today and I haven't researched it. It's something about computer coding that every letter has a number to do coding on computers. And I'm talking off what I've remembered rather than what I know. And X in computer coding is 8.
Yes.
8 is the letter H. And that's where Musk got it from his.
I've heard this a little bit.
Yeah, and you've got SpaceX, you've got his child called X, you've got whatever. And that apparently is a representation of who he admires or has sympathies for.
His kid is called X.
Yes. I saw a brilliant TikTok yesterday.
Not exactly the kid's name, but okay.
I saw this brilliant TikTok yesterday. This guy was talking about how weed is getting stronger. And, the world is being taken over by it. But ketamine somehow is getting weaker. It used to be able to bring down a horse, and now it can't even bring down a billionaire.
Brilliant.
Love it.
How long have I known you?
Me?
It's the first time you've said anything funny.
To be fair, I spent half the time making sure everyone's all right.
I had no idea that he was actually on the stuff. It was only because I saw someone's account that's verified, and I tagged Lee in it. I think I tagged you in it today, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, and I was looking going, I didn't know this. And he's openly talking about his use of the narcotic.
Yeah, he loves it.
You've not seen him in some videos where he's just not there, and he's got the
first time I ever probably saw him was on Joe Rogan. I swear to God, as soon as he handed him that bit of smoke, Musk just became what he is now. I still thoroughly blame Joe Rogan. He's a big part of this.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs. Do not do narcotics, kids.
Mm-hmm.
No, just say no. That's mad.
Yeah. He's a massive cathead.
Again, I'm going to ask you as a young person, Megan, right? Because you are young. What do we do? What do we do to get society back to? Because the England I know, or the Britain I know, is renowned for empathy and compassion and community. And we feel as if we've lost our way a little bit. We bring that back.
I mean, this isn't just a problem for the UK. It's a problem for, many countries. And I think it's just a division of the people, and we need to find a way to unite, because this is what the elites want. This is what the billionaires want. They want us to be fighting with each other. And they've been very successful at doing that. And we need to find a way. And I know I do a lot of trolling on my TikTok and stuff. It's probably not helping too much, but but they're not gonna I don't. If someone has complete brain rot, like if someone has been, constantly online, constantly eating up all of this propaganda to the point where they're scared of immigrants, scared of brown people, scared of Muslims, and they genuinely believe, there was a lady that I responded to a few days ago who genuinely believed that we should have, or the UK was headed for civil war, which is crazy. I don't know how to reach out to that type of person and say, look, I genuinely maybe deprogramming like they did in 1930s Germany. I don't know.
Well, so what do you say to an old person like me, right? Because I think we're dead right about society as being deliberately divided. Yeah. Now, I will always fight for people's right to vote, to have that right, regardless of who they're going to vote for.
I'm just going to say party.
Sorry?
You say fight for everyone's right, and you just stop for a second. Just thought you were going to say everyone's right to fight.
It's just dropped. Sorry. I was giving you a chance to explain because I'm trying to wrap my brain. What does he mean, party? What? I've got you now. I got you. And now I don't know what I was saying. The joys of old age. Damn you, Andreas. Right. Yes. So I'll fight for people to go and have that right to vote. If somebody said to me, you now need to go and fight with that right winger over there, I couldn't stand shoulder to shoulder. It would just be beyond me right now. How do we get beyond that?
We need to be able to somehow get the education out there. Right wingers are only going to start, I think, listening if it benefits them, because they have a lack of empathy for other people. So they need to feel benefited themselves. And I don't know how we're going to do that with the consistent disparity in wealth, which is only growing. Things are only going to get worse. And I do think all hope isn't lost, but it is looking a bit bleak, because unless there can be some sort of shift in the middle and lower classes to be able to, afford things again, be able to, feel comfortable living again, which I know a lot of people are struggling at the moment, because at the end of the day, it's can you afford to put food on the table? And as prices are rising, as energy is rising, as council tax is rising, they're just going to keep getting more and more angry. And as more and as the right-wing media continuously perpetuates, misinformation and focuses on violence from immigrants and brown people, whilst ignoring any violence from, British citizens or white people, it's going to be there's going to be this consistent divide. So they just we need to appeal to their emotions, and we need to help them feel safe, and and comfortable. And I don't know how to do that because I'm not a politician. I have no control over anything, right? So all I can do is try to educate, and that's what I try to do on my TikTok.
But we haven't got the politicians either, have we?
Oh no, the politicians are being bought. That's the thing. The politicians are being bought by the billionaires, and even labor. Like I just watched a video from what's his name? Great economist.
Gary.
Gary, yeah, and he was saying like the chancellor. There's no way the chancellor would be able to do or put in a wealth tax because like the media would rip them apart, right? So like regardless of even if Rachel Reeves has her best interest at heart, like has not her best interest, has the nation's best interest at heart. I don't know if she does or not. If she were to actually implement a wealth tax, that like she would be completely ripped apart by the media and by like all of these institutions that are run by billionaires. And sorry. So it would take a politician who does not care about the consequences to implement that type of policy.
We need some bravery. We need somebody to just kind of break the system a little bit and just say, do you know what, I've got 5 years in a term. I'm going to break it until we can make it. Not in a bad way, but like break the billionaire system, crack the oligarchs, close all the loopholes, get rid of the tax havens, close down Jersey and Guernsey and the Virgin Islands, and just really, really change the financial system we're in. Because otherwise, as you said, we're just going to create more and more inequality and more populism and more votes for the far right.
Yeah,
I think we have to have hope that there will be change in the future. I think to do that, you're going to have to. Obviously, you'd have to be strong morally with your ethics and convictions that you can't be contaminated or bend or break. But to get into that seat, you're going to have to go along with the prevailing wind, as it were. And then when you get in that seat is when you sit there and go, right, now I'm in it, time for change.
Yeah, almost bullshit in the other way.
Yeah, but we had that. We
Yeah.
had that opportunity under Jeremy Corbyn. We had it.
But
Whether you like it or not, we had a decent bloke. And that's what Parliament is screaming out for. I think I've said it before, his worst crime was that he makes jam.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He had a heart. You might not have agreed with his politics, but you knew they come from a good place.
Nigel's contender, he's the man the establishment fears. Like, no, Nigel, you're part of the establishment. Corbyn is the man the establishment fears.
Oh, they were so scared of him.
I was hoping during what you were saying, Megan, was that we'll just go back to the old days where it was acceptable to punch a Nazi.
Well, I will say the last time there was any sort of wealth inequality was right after the Second World War. So there needs to be, it might take like another war. It might take like, I don't know, them to actually elect Nigel Farage or just see the US go to shit for them to notice what's happening and maybe see the light of day, because there's way more of us than there are of the billionaires, right? So if we all actually united as a front, there might actually be some change.
Absolutely.
I agree. But at this moment in time, I think the left are far too fractured to be able to do that, as they have been for a number of. I've been involved on the left for quite some time now, and every time we've tried to organise, we've become fractured because somebody wants to lead it, or we need to do it under somebody's banner and all that.
I'm not talking about the left. I'm talking about just like all of the working class non-billionaires. Yeah. You know, if the left and the right were to unite as one unit against the elites, then there might be a chance, you know, like I know French Revolution didn't end very well, but like something similar to that.
That's a good place to remind people that the term right wing come from the French Revolution. It's not a made up term in 2025. But I think you are right. I fear that it's not going to happen for another generation. I still have hope that it will, but I fear it won't. And I think you're dead right. The only way that it's probably going to come around quicker is if somebody says, Nigel, there's the keys to Parliament. Go and screw the country and let everybody feel it.
Yeah, let everybody feel it for
Yeah.
them, and then give us the opportunity to rebuild from scratch.
Mm.
You think we would have learned with Brexit, right? But no, we need more damage.
Yeah.
Imagine if he gets in, Paul, Lee, I'll see you in prison, boys.
Yeah, same.
The
Freedom of
thing with
speech should be
Brexit,
taken full away.
Yeah.
the thing with Brexit is it didn't affect everybody, right? I mean, yes, it like with passports and stuff, but not like the poor people don't travel, right? So if it doesn't affect them, they don't notice any difference, right? There needs to be something that happens where they notice a change, where where their lives get significantly worse. And I'm not talking about like a cost of living crisis where they can't afford, food. I'm talking about like their basic rights being removed.
Catastrophic change. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realise. So to go back to the immigration situation with the indefinite right to remain to leave. Sorry, I never actually realised how much the pricing had gone up. Because when I was back at uni a number of years back, I was studying law and I was going to do my dissertation on immigration law because I wanted to help people escape war-torn countries and get into safe locations. Back when I was doing it, it was less than £1,000 to get someone in here, and that's just on the standard fee. You could do the premium, which would be an extra £300-400 maybe. But pre-Brexit, it was 1,500. It then jumped up to near £2,000, and now it's last I've seen now, as of last year, just the standard fee is £2,885.
Wow.
Just as a standard fee, not even premium. Premium could be nearly £1,000 higher if you want to move things along quicker.
Yeah.
And if you want to put that into a bit of context, if you go back just as the pandemic was coming to a close, the probably nigh on 100,000 now of overseas workers that the government had to pay to come and prop up health and social care. That far exceeds what's being spent. Do you know what I mean? And we still have massive vacancies. I mean, social care is 300,000 still, despite spending hundreds of millions of pounds to prop up.
They're really making immigration much less desirable. And as you said, with that indefinitely to remain, I'm paying that later this year, and it went up last year with a bunch of other visa costs. My visa didn't go up, but the health surcharge has gone up. So when this is how much it's gone up over the last 5 years. Not 5 years, 7 years, because I initially applied for my first visa 2 years ago or 7 years ago. Basically, it's gone up from like 280 or something to now it's 1,035 per year that
Jesus,
you're in the UK.
That's a hell of a ride.
Per year that you're in the UK. When I applied for it 5 years ago, it was 425, I think. So it's gone up like it's almost every 2 years. It like goes up. So it's crazy, like absolute crazy. And then you have the spousal visa requirements. The income requirements went up from like 17,000 to 28,000 with the eventual plan to put it up to 38,000, which is well above the average wage. Like that's going to tear families apart. They're already tearing families apart, and it's very like, again, it's contributing to this rhetoric that immigrants are the problem. But if you remove all the immigrants, then the economy will collapse. Nothing will get better. Everything will get worse, like cost of living wise. And you think the NHS is bad now? Wait until all the immigrants go, right? Like it's
absolutely
it's insane.
The population
that was kind of the point, because of the working in social care when we brought all of those people over. It's not just how much money it cost the government, but we had to agree a set wage, which was way above what we were paying standard in the industry and continuing to pay. And it's trying to say to people, look how much you're costing us because you won't fill those jobs. You want to do something about immigration? Go and fill those health and social care jobs. We wouldn't need as many immigrants coming over if you got off your backside and done the jobs.
But I mean, it's also the fact that a lot of these companies are purposely hiring immigrants to exploit them. So that's another problem. So it's not necessarily. I mean, yes, it's British people not working. That's a, but it's also like again, it's all about the money, right? These corporations, the care worker industry is rampant with worker exploitation, immigrant worker exploitation, right? And it's because they're purposely recruiting immigrants to be able to exploit.
Absolutely, Nathan. I just want to touch on that because the biggest offenders at this moment in time are the same companies that are robbing the country dry by hiding their money in offshore tax accounts. Yeah. It's about the top 4 or 5 social care organisations in the country that are taking the money out as well as exploiting their workers. And I've been told not to mention the names because I was going to. But yeah, it's
probably because we have to say we have reason to believe, and we can't just say it's categorical.
No, I was making another video the other day for myself, and I was speaking to somebody, and they were saying like, no. There are some big newspapers that went to publish, and they got threatened with a lot of money and have pulled back on some of it. So I'm not in that position to be able to fight. Yeah.
In a world of free speech, we've got to be careful what we say.
Absolutely. No matter how factual it is, you still can't say it.
No, I know, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Megan's spot on with the financial requirements for spousal visas.
Yep.
God.
It's insane,
it jumped up 11 grand.
That was the Tories. That did that. They initially wanted to go straight from 17 to 38, and then they got a lot of backlash. So they dropped it down to 28 to make them look like the good guys. But then they've said that the plan was to eventually raise it to 38. I don't know what Labour's plan is for that. They haven't said anything, but
was that 38? Was that 38 between them, like the 29ers?
No. So the British person that is sponsoring the immigrant has to make that.
I know, it's insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had a similar thing.
If you had that in social care, we had to get people qualified before they came over as well. So there was that added cost on top of it.
Yeah. And then if you want to talk about student visas as well, that's a lot of universities are seeing the implications of that with students. A lot of people on student visas not able to bring dependents. So
especially from Asian countries.
Yeah. And the thing is they get a lot of their students are from Asian countries, and in those cultures they do tend to marry younger, so they will have dependents. So that's the universities are really struggling, not just in the UK, also in Canada, because Canada put a cap on student immigration, and a lot of universities in Canada are having to shut downsize, basically, fire people and stuff.
That's mad. We had that. Literally, I had that exact situation happen. So a friend of mine, he's an Indian guy, was as gay as the day is long. Wonderful human being, but in his culture, he couldn't go back after outing himself so publicly in the UK with social media. But he did a misprint on his student visa. He was technically illegal, and we fought for like 6 months to keep him here.
Oh wow!
It was the most stressful 6 months I've ever had.
Could he claim refugee status or claim asylum?
No. It was crazy. It was like we're getting so close. He's going to have to get on that plane and go back. And if he goes back, he's very likely to not come back.
Yeah.
And that his culture, it was very If you've come out the closet in that culture, you're in a big heap of trouble if you go back home. So we did everything we could to keep him there.
But that by itself is not enough to claim asylum here.
No, it wasn't. No, that was what was heartbreaking. We had Caroline Lucas get involved. We pulled every single string we possibly could. Wow. Very thankfully, he's still here.
Good.
Oh, good.
Very happy. Love the little man. Who's watching.
Yeah, I met in Morocco on my desert tour. I met a couple. One guy from Bangladesh, one guy from India. Both students. Neither of them wanted to stay in the UK after they finished school. So that's a big myth as well, that every student wants to stay in the UK. But they were laughing at because that was in October, so it was still kind of soonish after the summer riots, and they were saying that I think it was the guy from India that who said that it's funny because in the UK everybody believes, or the racists will believe that he's Muslim, but in his country they hate Muslims. So it's he was kind of like laughing at the differences between the two countries. So yeah, I guess it's really like I am so privileged being an immigrant from Canada, because I would not want to be one from one of those other countries. Like the amount of hate they must get is, especially now.
I was going to ask, have you had any issues since coming here? Have you experienced any sort of issues where anyone sort of picked on the nationality at all? 'Cause obviously, skin color, no one's going to say anything because they can sit there and go, "White woman, English speaking, she's one of us." You know, you get that sort of mentality.
It's mostly xenophobia on TikTok, because I say things that these races don't like. But there was one instance when the first job I had in the UK was I was working at a call center, and I can't remember. I know it was brutal. It was I was on the phone with this like elderly English lady, and she was saying, "Oh, I can't understand you. I can't understand you. Like, speak English. I can't understand." And like, how can you not understand? And then as she was hanging up the phone, she said, "Too many immigrants in this country."
No.
But let's face it, the average age of a Reform voter is what, retired now?
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah. Even then, you just sit there.
I know.
I'm like, how can you not understand my accent? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah.
It is mad.
Yeah.
I do still batten the argument that the English don't integrate as well as other cultures do and other nations do.
Absolutely not.
I've visited other countries. I've still got my residency card for Tenerife. Mine's for life. I can go if I wanted to move there right now. I can go and live there right now. So I've got the little green card for it, and it's even out there. The English immigrants out there, and I refuse to call them expats.
Yep.
A lot of the older ones are exactly the same. They just they stay in their English cliques. There was a couple out there, been out there 40 years. You think, oh, I can't learn, help. They could teach me Spanish. They can help me learn. Didn't speak a word of it.
All these immigrants coming over here, staying in their groups, not integrating. God, bastards.
I still remember watching a TikTok from a army vet, and his words. It was like a 5-minute video. Of him basically saying like he's been in all of these countries. He's been to all of these like Middle Eastern, African, Asian countries, and he has never been attacked. He has never been racially abused, or he has always been welcomed with open arms regardless of where he goes. It is only in white Western countries where there's racism against someone of another color or culture.
So he was in the army.
Yeah.
So was he walking? Was it like as in touring, or was he just a retired army person?
I think he was retired because he was older, and he was in the UK. So, but yeah, he said like there's no like you go to any country in Africa, Middle East, Asia, they all just welcome you with open arms. There's none of this racial segregation or dehumanization of Western white people in those countries. It's just in Western countries that there is for people of different ethnicities.
I mean, I've travelled to 50 odd countries now, and every single one of them has offered warm hospitality. I've tried really, really hard to speak local languages where possible, even if it's just please and thank you, and how to ask for your loaf of bread, not just the normal, beer pour voir. And that makes the difference, I suppose. It's just a little bit. It goes a long, long way, especially if you're white British and you're not drinking beer on the Costa del Crime.
I am aware of the time, Megan, how long we've had.
Yeah.
But I've got, I think the question that was sent in was around asylum seekers and employment. So we could just clarify what the situation is there, if people are allowed to work, when people are allowed to work, and what type of work are they allowed.
Asylum seekers generally cannot work unless their claims are taking longer than a year. But if their claim that's only if the fault is of the government, not of the asylum seeker. So if they haven't, if they haven't accidentally brought like incorrect documentation or all of that, typically they aren't allowed to work unless their claims take more than a year. I believe that's the case.
Yes.
But it would definitely boost the economy if they were allowed to work, and it would be nothing but beneficial. So there you go.
Absolutely.
But there's some after 12 months, you're only allowed to work off a list, aren't you? There's a list.
Yeah, there's like a selection jobs.
Oh, have they updated the list?
I've got no. I meant to look at it before. Come on, but I didn't. You've got a couple of fans in the comments as well. I'm just looking.
Yeah, just looking.
Yeah, so yeah.
Shall I read them out?
Absolutely none for us. I'm absolutely disgusted at those people in the comments that we haven't.
I haven't even checked. I actually haven't even
it's
been.
Just Megan who's got a couple of comments. None of us.
No, it's a lot of love for Megan. Everyone else is idiots, I think.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Megan, let's steer away from immigration for a little bit.
Yeah.
What's your hot political pick of the week?
My hot political. I've been trolling Mega on my Instagram page because my main thing right now is the disinformation about the tariffs and the 51st state stuff is just crap. But like a lot of my attention at the moment is what's happening with Canada-U.S. relations, because it is directly not necessarily affecting me personally, but it is affecting my friends and family that live there. Canada is uniting. Canada is, Quebec, Alberta is even uniting with Canada, which never happens. So it's bad when you have Alberta and Quebec uniting with Canada, with the rest of Canada. And I saw there's a photo of Pearson Airport. The Pearson is the airport in Toronto. Now is March break in Ontario, so it's kind of like spring break in the States, half term here. We call it March break, and it's when everybody goes on holiday and takes the week off. And there was a comparison photo from last year and this year in the U.S. Departures. And last year it was packed. This year, nobody's going to the States. Completely empty airport.
Fantastic.
So I am so proud of my fellow Canadians, and I am incredibly patriotic. All I can do from the UK is be an internet warrior and troll Mega from my Instagram page. That's all I can do. But you guys are doing the bulk of the work by choosing to buy Canadian and avoiding, because there is a lot of we get a lot of trade from the States. So choosing to buy Canadian or not even just Canadian, but not American is a big challenge because we get a lot of trade from the US.
Can you just do a quick overview for us on the myths and the rumors of the tariffs? Because obviously, what we've seen over here is very clickbaity, 15-second video click bites, and it's like, can you just give a quick overview of, if possible?
A big myth going on with Mega now is that Canada has been tariffing or putting on tariffs on milk and stuff, like 200% tariffs on milk and stuff. And so these are retaliatory tariffs. The tariff that Trump is putting on are retaliatory tariffs, which is not true necessarily, because those tariffs are only on selected products, and they're there to protect unprotected industries. So we protect our our dairy industry. So and those tariffs were actually on there when they agreed the trade deal in 2020. So Trump and Trudeau agreed. Trump, Trudeau, and Mexico agreed this North American trade deal in 2020, which Trump said was the best deal they ever signed. And so those tariffs were on there already. The fact that Mega is saying that that those tariffs are a reason to tariff Canada is ridiculous, because Trump agreed to those tariffs in 2020. So that's a big thing. Saying that they subsidize Canada is just not true either. We have a trade deficit. They don't subsidize us. The UK has the US has a trade deficit with the UK. So by using that same logic, then the UK should be tariffing the US. So, like, it's just so much misinformation. The border is a whole like is completely hypocritical because we get guns from the states. They come across the border. We get drugs from the states. They come across the border. But it's when it comes to the border, it is their own country. So the U.S. is responsible for checking the things that are crossing their border, right? So if Trump has an issue with drugs coming across or fentanyl coming across the border, he should be addressing his border officers, right? Because that's his country's problem. Whereas Canada is responsible for our country's border and the stuff coming through the Canadian side.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've been following
on the who's the is it Doug someone? He said something about the electricity and get ready guys because it's going to go up. Like, oh, spicy time.
This is so good.
Doug Ford. So Doug Ford is the Premier of Ontario, and he's basically he's funny, not in a very good way. But the way he's been dealing with the whole Trump thing is funny a little bit because he used to be a Trump wannabe. He used to idolize Trump. And the way he's been treating Ontario is very similar to Trump as like selling off our healthcare system. So healthcare, public services in Canada are run by the provincial government, not federal. So he's kind of been selling off our healthcare system. He's been, terrible in many ways. And a lot of Ontarians hate him, but apparently not enough to not elect him again because he was just reelected. But I think he was felt a little bit backstabbed by Trump with this whole tariff nonsense. And now he's going full throttle against Trump, which I'm not sure. I think the way he's going about it might be a little bit too aggressive. I don't know how productive it's going to be in the long term, but we'll see.
Is he right wing?
Yeah.
More right wing fighting right wing.
Yeah. Well, it's right wing Canada though, right? And there's a very even the right wing in Canada tends to not want to be American. There is a select few of Maple Mega. We call them Maple Mega. A select few of Maple Mega that do want to be the first state. And to them, I say, go to the U.S. and we can trade for like some people in California or New York, Minnesota. I like Minnesotans as well. Like basically the Dems, the Democrats, the good ones. We'll trade. You can have the U.S. can have the Maple Mega, and we can have your Democrats.
I'm also wary about the time. I don't want to take up too much time this
can
evening.
I just call out Druid's Willow because they tried to haul it back and say that the Love Us guys.
I know. I did see that, and I thought
hugely admire Megan tagged on the end.
I know.
That really wasn't needed to put that on the end. You could have just left it.
I love it.
Megan, you've been absolutely amazing. It's been
Thank you.
For hours.
Thank you. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll say what, I'm going to stop the stream just so we can say goodbye to each other off camera. Yeah. So for everyone who's watching, thank you. Really appreciate it. Love the chat. It's been really nice. Thank you. And I'm going to press stop on the old stream. Bear with me. Bye guys.